Yeah.
But
Well, team, I think we're as good as we're gonna get today. The Coalition of the Willing is here, and Lucy is gonna drive us. So Lucy, you ready to roll?
I'm ready if y'all are, and we can just update folks as they come on in. I saw that Catherine is not able to make it today, but is willing to volunteer as a co-captain. So that's an exciting development. My connection is not the best, so I'm off camera, and just holler if you are having trouble hearing or following what I'm saying. But welcome everyone. We apologize for the scheduling changes. We had to get together as a leadership team and have a conversation about how to best steward the committee. And I think we're in a really good place now. And we're excited to share some updates and to get y'all's input and buy-in for next steps. So we'll move to the strategic updates on the agenda. Um, and I guess I need to mention the guiding question at the beginning that we keep going back to at every gathering, which is how are voters informed in North Carolina? And part of our updates is that we have to put together a report, as we've mentioned, that's due on June 30th. And we're going to try to answer that question. Um, and so what we would love to do is sort of break up our work into two phases. We'll start with phase one, and that'll be our report period. We'll, continue doing the work now and make sure we wrap it up by the end of June. And we hope to synthesize all of the pieces that we've talked about in previous meetings about what's going on right now in our civic education landscape. So a bit of the asset mapping that I know Leslie has been so helpful on in understanding which groups are already doing this great work. And two, pairing that with what are the new initiatives that the state and county boards of elections are doing to educate their voters. So we would love if Leslie and Catherine, if y'all are willing to help us be the asynchronous captains for that. So it would just, entail checking in with each other, making sure that we've compiled everything on that document that's in the agenda. I'm going to put that out there. What are our thoughts on that phase one approach?
I'm the only one not on mute, so I'll say I'm enthusiastic, but would love to hear what others think about that. Jim?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to find out what's out there, and then in the second phase, I think that Lucy will talk about would be sort of the action phase, for lack of a better word, but to kind of communicate whatever message we have with people.
Leslie, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I know that was my big idea, but I'm also the chair of another committee, and so yes, I will do as much as I can to help with the asset mapping and seeing what's out there.
Know, Leslie, that you have me behind you on that too. So
Okay.
and be confident in that. But
Okay.
I think this is a good plan, but let me just throw something out that just occurred to me. If we're asset mapping, maybe one thing that we could do is give, I have some friends that are doing research on which local election officials have Twitter, Facebook, well, Twitter, whatever, X, Facebook, and Instagram accounts. And what kinds of things that they're communicating on that. So would I give that to, if I can get that from my friends, I guess I would give that to Catherine.
Yes, and that would be very
That's
helpful.
important communication efforts, I think. At least this is what Leah and Mara are finding, my friends. So just throwing it out there.
That would be great. And I think that would enhance, I know Damon already asked his contacts at the state board about their outreach plan, and we know they're dropping a couple mailers, and we have the rough outline of that. So I think that would be great to include, Martha, if your friend is willing to share. Well, that sounds great. And Leslie, I don't want, in whatever capacity you're willing to be involved is appreciated. And I think Catherine is really willing to help as well. So don't feel like it would just be you. And I'm happy to help with the continuation of that too. Because I think we have a lot of the information, it's just in different places, So that's a good segue into phase 2. Thank you, Jim, for mentioning, I like the idea that the second phase will be action. We have it listed as outreach, and it would be after we see all of the reports from the other committees, we would be able to assist with programming that not only the Trusted Elections Tour already has underway, but also if other committees are generating ideas that may need some messengers to help with it. And since Tom had sent that great list of sort of mediums to think about, whether it's a speakers bureau or letters to the editor, we thought that maybe Tom would want to lead that. And then I guess I can follow up with the both of them to see. We don't need to have separate captains for that, but just we wanted to find a place for those who are most interested to feel like they can kind of own it. So that's what we're looking to do for phase 2, was just be ready to assist. And I don't know if Jennifer or Rachel, if y'all want to chime in with what the plans are with the Trusted Elections Tour. We got a great brief summary from Rachel last week, but if y'all could share a little more, I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a good media list, and we have done this, 2 years ago. So we have some friends in certain places who did a really good job of getting the word out ahead of time, coming to the event. We actually had media moderate many of the events, which worked really well as well. We had some op-eds, we had some television coverage in different parts of the state. So we'll certainly build on that. Another thing that the Carter Center has added, and which we are still waiting to see it bear fruit. The Carter Center has hired a national media firm, and we've been assigned a person to work just on North Carolina, but also be backed up by their national folks.
Jennifer, do you know who they hired?
GMMB.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, you can look them up. They've done a lot of different media campaigns. They're going to be helping. We're not sure, since they're doing it in 6 states and the Carter Center has limited budget, kind of how much localized and targeted media they're going to help us with, but there'll be something, another resource that we can turn to and work with, and they may be really helpful. So as I said, we're still waiting. They've just been hired. They're still onboarding. We're doing, some of you may get invited to a session with them next Tuesday, where they're going to talk about their strategy and plan for working with North Carolina. So anyway, that's a new thing. Carter Center didn't have this before that was as extensive as this one. We asked specifically for somebody who was just going to be working on North Carolina this time around, who would, learn to understand the state, et cetera. Unfortunately, she does not live in North Carolina. She's in DC, but we think there's a lot of possibility there. So that will help amplify what we've done before. We've had press releases, we have flyers, we work with Legal and Voters. We're going to hopefully have Bet the Vote also helping us get the word out. And then all of our local contacts in our network, which is about 400 people. Martha.
Well, I was just gonna say that, I don't know who from this committee will be invited to go. But we had, you guys had mentioned the North Carolina Association of Broadcasters and asking them to do public service announcements. What it seems to me is, I wonder, it's worth finding out from this group, can they produce public service announcements for us that could be distributed via the North Carolina Association of Broadcasters. And I noticed that you guys had also talked earlier, these were so cool ideas that you had said earlier about having influencers. And it would be fun to have someone who is an influencer in the state. I don't know who, but somebody. I'm kind of a nerd, so what do I know other than maybe that cute little basketball player on NC State's team? Because, you know, my kid goes to NC State and I watched a lot of NC State basketball among men and women. So I wonder if there are, you know, ways that we could ask them to help push out some of the ads that once we've made contact with them that we could do. Though I imagine a media firm can do that too. But I think we have great contacts on this group.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be asking about, you know, NIL, but how that works and whether that's, you know, something we could do. And, you know, even the Carter Center did something in 2020 with a Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket and Georgia Bulldog, you know, just the mascots, right? So, and they, you know, they did a thing together. So yeah, we could do that with, you know, the Wolfpack and the Ramses Tar Heel. Just not include Duke. Not kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah, well, watch it. Yeah, I think you also left out Norm the Niners. So
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That'd be fun.
You know, that makes me wonder if there's any value in leveraging our professional sports teams in some way to promote this, particularly in the fall. You know, any election related information we're trying to get out.
I think that's a great idea. You know, who is it? Tova Wong, who's at the Ash Center at Harvard, has been working with NFL teams, or at least studying the effects of the NFL teams. I don't know what kind of contacts Jennifer or you all have with any of the NFL teams, but I love that. You know, I love doing the Panthers, getting them such as they are. You know, the Checkers,
What the
Hornets,
Hurricanes. And the Hurricanes.
and the Hurricanes.
Yep. So those are all definitely things to explore.
Does anybody have contacts with them?
I have some in the Hurricanes.
Yeah, I can get to the Checkers and I can get to them. I mean, I'm sure Jim could too.
I have friends, I still know people at the Observer who cover the Panthers and the Hornets, and they could probably hook something up.
Yeah, I've got Freddie Wilpill's yeah, I've got contact with some of those for sure. So
Panthers
and GMB would be the kind of group that could help us, you know, write the copy to make sure it's bipartisan and, you know, it fits all the right requirements. So
would it make sense for each of those teams and contacts that were mentioned if y'all go ahead and reach out to them in whatever means you can, and then, you know, I can make a spreadsheet in the folder to document whether they're interested, and we can have them sort of ready and on deck to use for outreach this summer. I don't have any contacts at any of them.
Yeah, we can do that.
Maybe Carolina.
Hey, do we have an idea of what these messages would say at this point? I mean, there's a lot of committees. We're covering a lot of ground. What would we summarize it as in a public service announcement?
well, the main thing is, you know, we're trying to keep a peaceful environment for voting and for our election workers. We're trying to instill confidence and support of the electoral process. So some of the phrases we used before, election workers are your friends and neighbors. They're working very hard to make sure your vote counts. Get out and vote, support your election workers. Democracy depends on all of us. Those kind of spirited, patriotic, feel good, be peaceful.
I would also suggest that we leverage the civic holidays as our strategy, right? So those already exist, right? The national election holidays. So there's Vote Early Day, there's Voter Registration Day, there's Poll Heroes Day, where you actually celebrate poll workers, which I really think we need to lean into with some sort of statewide campaign. But they also have lots of materials you can actually get from the national folks. But I think how powerful would it be if if it's something happened all across the state on that day that's educating folks and celebrating democracy.
There's even a group out there, it's called Democracy Day, and they've got materials, the same thing of trying to get people to do things all on the same day. I'll have to find out what day it is.
We have Leslie, I know I should know this, but do you have the list of what those national holidays are? Somewhere handy where you don't have to do a lot of work to pull it together since you're a little busy this year?
I just put it in the chat.
Oh, you rule.
And of course, there's also Constitution Day, right, in September. That's always, so in my mind, it'd be cool if we think strategically about linking into something that's happening nationally, but making it,
That is
specific.
Okay. I want to follow up on that because this is neat. All universities plan a Constitution Day event. Maybe we could push out ideas for Constitution Day, which would involve, say, Republican and Democratic members from our committee going out there and saying, what are we doing and how does it matter? I like that because so I know UNC Charlotte usually plans pretty far in advance, but I really honestly don't know who's in charge of it. My husband was one year, but I don't think he is now.
So one of the holidays is Voter Education Week, and that's in October. So it makes sense to me that we would be educating people during that week.
Yes. You put that, I'm sorry, Leslie, you put it in the chat, and this may just be user error, but I'm not getting it to come up here.
It seems to be going to the Read AI meeting notes. So let me. I don't know why that person or that entity got it, but now it's in the main chat. But we promote it pretty heavily on our college campuses, and so I think if there were something statewide, that'd be really cool.
I think Read AI is my fault. I forgot to turn off my AI for this meeting. Sorry. Just going to me.
This is how the robots win, Jennifer. This is exactly how the robots win.
I thought, oh, we have a new committee member.
Well, Lucy, it sounds to me like we've got general consensus amongst our now bifurcated plan, which is a report between now and June 30th, and then work on sort of dissemination post June 30th. What's next for us to discuss and deliberate and move forward?
Just for next steps, thank you all so much for your support in that. I'm excited to have more clarity and to see what we can put together. I just dropped a link to the final report draft in the chat, and it's the outline that I'm sure Rachel, you so capably created already. That's so helpful. And that will be the template that we're using. So what I would love to do is, if so I think Catherine will be the main person who's working on drafting it, and then Leslie, as you're able to put things in on that document, that would be great as well. And then at our next meeting, which is in mid-May, I'm blanking on when exactly it is, but we can have something to look at, and then give final edits after that meeting so that we can wrap it up by the next month. And all of these awesome ideas, about what to do during that outreach stage are being documented, and then we'll circle back about how to incorporate them in stage 2. So how does that sound?
Sounds good to me. Scott, we haven't heard from you today. You generally enthusiastic about this whole scene?
Yeah, I think this is great. This is a great discussion. And Jim asked the question that was going through my mind when you're talking about outreach and messaging is, what is the message? And I think Jennifer nailed it. Although I would maybe emphasize a little bit more the participatory part, getting people to register and get out and vote. One part that is often overlooked is, inform yourself. And how do you inform yourself? One of the things that I did in California, and it was actually a state requirement, and I'm just offering this out as a point of reference for voter education and voter information, is I would mail a booklet, a voter information guide to every voter for every election by name. And that guide was personalized to them, what their polling location was, it had and what offices and contests were going to appear on their ballot, as well as public statements from the candidates and pro and con arguments and rebuttals for any measures or questions that would appear on their ballot. It was in multiple languages. There's information about how to request an absentee ballot, how to vote early. There's information about how to access accessibility services, whether it be language or mobility. And it was a pretty big endeavor, to be honest, and it was not cheap. But if you've ever interacted with any former California voters, they always ask, "Where's my voter guide?" Because they're expecting that the democratic institutions will inform the voters and make it easier for them to become informed, rather than leaving it to their own devices to figure out where to get trusted information about the candidates, the issues, and where to vote, and all of that. So I've worked in states where we didn't do that, and I always thought it was kind of a disservice not to. The state of Washington did something similar, but a lot more modest and not personalized so much. But having the Board of Elections, whether local or at the state level, and probably best done at the local level, provide information either on a website or through a mailing of the basic information, proactively informing voters. I think is fits into sort of the ideas that you're looking at here, I think. So just as a point of reference, not necessarily as a recommendation for you guys to embrace, but just so you know that what is going on other places.
Helpful, thank you.
That's extremely helpful. I just also, it occurred to me, that there are some things that come from the other committees that just I'll throw out now. I guess the big one was just informing people that they can be poll workers and what the process is to become a poll worker. So
Right.
the Election Administration and Infrastructure Committee is working on poll worker through the life course. Is that how you put that? Actually, Leslie came up with that.
I think it's across the lifespan.
There you go. See, and so we're trying to come up with a program that would be sustainable, that would think about poll workers all the way from high school, where we already have programs, but pushing them. That's another thing that this committee could do. Say, hey, we have this program. And all the way to when people are senior citizens. So if we do sort of come up with something like that, this could be something that the Civic Education Committee could really help us elevate. So that would be really cool, I think.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to Scott's point about, some sort of resource. I think that's part of our asset mapping is there are organizations that have some version. So at least if we could have that in one place, like almost maybe the title is, where do I find stuff about elections in North Carolina? I'm trying to think of what the Google search would be, right? But everyone's like, I don't know. And maybe at a minimum, we could have that list exist somewhere, like, League of Women Voters, you can vote. I mean, there are people in places who do collect that. You're right. And unfortunately, they have to do a little bit of work. But at a minimum, we could at least direct folks to where they can get nonpartisan perspectives on the races or things like that. So anyway, yeah, I was just thinking along those lines, but what you're talking about sounds really amazing.
Yeah, there was
all in one.
There was another committee that brought up the point that there are states that mail out a sample ballot. So not just what races there are, but actually giving you what the ballot's going to look like, and
That
telling
was
you
included,
where you can vote and when you can vote, without trying to, Scott, I think trying to do a statement from each of the candidates when you have 80 candidates on the ballot is an election, presidential year is going to be tough, but even just sample ballot, maybe with the website for each candidate or something, it would tell you, there is an election, when you can vote early, where, all that, and it is personalized. It's done for each person where they live in their district. So I know that the state board has some money this year to do some mailers. So this may be one of the, if the committee decides it's one of the things they want to pass along as part of that before they start doing those mailings, that's something you can talk about as well.
Yeah, so even a ballot telling them what they get to vote on is really helpful, because that helps them focus any efforts that they make to gather information. Because you see campaign ads and campaign signs all over the place, but you don't necessarily know whether that is something you can vote on or not. But there is a lot of information that already exists. The League of Women Voters, there's 411 has election information. There's all kinds of organizations that pull together stuff. Ballotopedia is another. Even kind of consolidating a list of what those resources are specific to North Carolina and a specific election, I think would be a great thing to do for North Carolina voters. And it wouldn't have to, the cost could be negligible. It wouldn't have to be mailed out, although it could, but just having it available at a centralized place where people will go to get official information. That was part, yeah.
I just say, I think it is important to be mailed, because not everybody has internet access. Not everybody is going to go take an active step and go and look things. If they get it in the mail, they get it. But anyway, that's just, there are a lot of folks. I know a lot of folks who don't do internet.
The State Board of Elections has some remaining money, just a touch, in what was from the Judicial Public Campaign Finance Fund to do a mailer. I don't know their specific plans. Those historically have, by statute, had to include the information on judicial candidates, but they've done a good job over years prior, where to vote, how to vote, where to get information. They'll also have some resources for photo ID. And typically, if they're going to mail out on photo ID, they'll do some other stuff as well. So there will be something there. Whether or not we choose to speak into that, see if we can augment that, help that, I don't know, support that. There might be some opportunities there. Well, so it sounds like we've got our marching orders for 6:30. Lucy, before we wrap today, do you want to touch briefly on, we kind of been talking a little bit about the post 6:30 stuff. Aside from those two items, what do we have on our agenda? I'm trying to pull it up while we're all talking. And
I
Rachel,
think-
by the way, thanks for being so great on agendas and organization and all that sort of stuff.
I think we've covered all of it because I think the outreach really has come up as a strand throughout our conversation today, unless I'm missing.
Well, I don't think you are. What do the rest of y'all think? Any other comments, thoughts, discussions, ideas before we wrap?
I would love us to review over what everybody's gonna do before the next meeting. I think that would be exceedingly helpful.
So here's what you want me to, why don't you start and we'll all go around and see, we'll go around the horn. Martha, how's that sound?
I think that sounds great. So, yeah, you know what? It occurs to me that I could probably contact Norm the Niner here. Or at least find the people who know Norm the Niner and assess interest in participating in a nonprofit campaign of some sort. Anybody else? What else you got, folks?
So I've got reach out to the state board to get clarity on what their mailing and plans will be. And then when the time is right, be prepared to reach out to contacts at the Carolina Hurricanes when we have a specific ask for something. And Rachel, can you remind us when our next meeting is, just so I make sure that I got it on my calendar?
I was going to touch base on that because we're kind of off schedule for what it would have been. I believe on the calendar we have it Friday, May 3rd. Do you want to continue with that?
I'm going to ask everybody on the crew here what they would think about moving to Friday, May 17th to kind of keep a lineup with mid-month. Can you raise your hand if you are busy on the 17th and can't make that meeting? Oh,
Actually, that is our annual election science meeting.
got it. Okay. Might I then suggest I'm unavailable on the 10th, but that doesn't mean the 10th couldn't work. The other one would be the 24th, which is the weekend before Memorial Day. So that might thwart some of your plans. Should we move off Fridays? How about this, Rachel? Why don't you doodle poll us for sometime mid-May? And then we can kind of figure that out and we can capture the people who weren't here as well today.
Okay. Is there any day for anyone that is just absolutely this does not work other than May 17th?
Well, honestly, it's I have a bipartisan policy center meeting the 13th, 14th, and part of the 15th, and then Ezra is the 15th, 16th, and 17th. So I'll be.
So that week is hard for you regardless. Is that right?
But you can meet without me.
Let's go ahead and throw a date out there on like maybe the Thursday that week to see if we can get a bunch of other folks, and then let's look into the early part of next week and see if that works.
Okay.
I don't know if this is too far, but if we already have an early June meeting on the calendar, I mean, I feel like is that too much time in between? Because that would still give us a couple weeks after that meeting to edit the report if y'all want.
But if we're gonna do that, Lucy, that means that we're gonna have to draft report available. Do Martha, Leslie, who else speaking into the report, would that be the better use of our May time as something,
I don't know. Catherine and I have to get together to kind of create our strategy for how we're gonna,
why don't we do this? That's good point. Why don't we do this? Why don't you have that meeting, report back here and say, hey, listen, I think it would behoove us to all get together sometime in May. And if so, Rachel will turn on a doodle poll. And if not, and you all think you want to move forward in lieu of, we'll just keep the June meeting where it is. Does that sound good to everyone? Nice.
All right, I'll try to get with her today and then give you all an answer, or maybe Monday.
Because Leslie, you have nothing going on at all these days.
Nothing.
I am writing my friends right now to see if they have the social media information that I can pass along to Catherine, I suppose.
Perfect. All right. Well, it sounds like we've got a tentative plan to move forward. It sounds like Martha's given up what she's got to do. I've given up what I got to do. Anybody else have to-dos between now and then? Obviously, Leslie's got several to-dos we just talked about. Jim?
I can contact one of our neighbors who's also a precinct captain at our precinct, works for the Panthers, so I can talk to him. He's a
Perfect.
former colleague at the Observer, so.
I'll talk to the Hornets. I've got to contact the Hornets, and I'll also get up to speed on how much our Carter Center advertising firm can help.
Good, good, good. Scott, anything you thinking about there? All right. Well, team, having heard all that,
And
there is now officially 19 minutes of your life that you did not have accounted for. And it's currently in Raleigh, North Carolina, 74 degrees outside. So I will just say thank you one and all. And let's enjoy our rest of our Friday. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Damon.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
thanks, y'all.